Have you ever just had that feeling that huge, world-changing plans are being made kind of just out of you? Well, you're not wrong. At all. Right now, some of the most powerful groups on Earth are rolling out these massive, ambitious blueprints to reshape our world. Okay, let's get into it.
This quote right here, this is going to be our guidepost for this entire explainer. It's getting at something really important, that in the world we live in today, being truly literate isn't just about reading the words on a page. It's about learning to read between the lines. So our mission today is to build that exact skill, to learn how to really look at the big ideas shaping all of our lives. So first things first, let's get our heads around what we're actually talking about here. We are living in a time where major global organizations are putting forward these enormous, coordinated plans to fundamentally change our societies, our economies, and even the way the world is run. And the ambition here is, well, it's just staggering. We're not talking about small tweaks to policy. Nope, these are grand blueprints, often involving trillions of dollars, designed to tackle the absolute biggest challenges that humanity is facing. The stakes couldn't be higher, really, because their success or their failure is going to define the world that we all live in. So what are these big plans? Let's do a quick-fire tour of some of the major blueprints that are out there right now. For this part, we're just going to focus on what they say their goals are, to get a clear factual baseline for each one. First on our list is the Great Reset. This one's from the World Economic Forum, and the core idea is to use the global recovery from the pandemic as an opportunity to, in their words, build back better. What does that mean? Well, it means trying to restructure capitalism to focus more on long-term sustainability and something they call stakeholder value. So instead of a company just focusing on profit for its shareholders, the goal would be to also think about the impact on employees, on communities, and on the planet. Then you've got the UN Sustainable Development Goals. You'll often see them called the SDGs. This is a huge, all-encompassing vision with 17 interconnected goals that countries all over the world have signed on to. And the targets are super specific. We're talking about things like completely wiping out extreme poverty, which they define as living on less than $1.90 a day, and making sure everyone has access to clean, affordable energy, all by 2030. Now this number, 196, it just perfectly shows you the massive scale of these plans. That's how many parties signed on to the Paris Agreement for climate change. The way it works is that each country comes up with its own plan. It's called a nationally determined contribution to do its part in hitting that big unified goal of keeping global warming well below 2 degrees Celsius. And now, shifting gears a bit, we have the Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI. This is China's signature global project. The idea is to fund and build a kind of modern-day Silk Road, a huge network of new ports, railways, and pipelines. We're talking about projects like the high-speed train that now connects China to Laos, or the massive expansion of the Piraeus port over in Greece. The stated goal is to boost trade, but it's also designed to seriously increase China's economic influence across continents. Okay, so the Great Reset, the SDGs, the Paris Agreement, the BRI, these are gigantic, really complicated plans, and they all have powerful people backing them. So the big question is, how on earth are any of us supposed to make sense of it all? And this is where we have to pivot. This is where we need to start talking about a new kind of literacy, one that's built for the 21st century. Now, what's so interesting here is how this idea really builds on that quote from the beginning. It completely reframes the problem. In a world where we're drowning in information, the source material here argues that real understanding isn't about just absorbing more and more facts. No, it's about developing the critical skill of unlearning, of deliberately and carefully examining the stories we're told, no matter how official they might sound. The source material gives us this really powerful metaphor to make this idea concrete. Puppet strings. Think about it. Governments and politicians, they pull a string by setting the agenda. Corporations and advertisers pull another one by shaping what we want to buy. Media outlets pull a third by framing the stories we see and hear every day. And then you have social media algorithms pulling a fourth string, feeding us stuff that's designed to make us feel something, not necessarily to make us think. Each one is pulling a string, shaping how we see these huge global plans. So this is the crucial part. How do we actually do this? Let's give it a try.
We're going to take this idea of critical literacy and apply it to a couple of the blueprints we just looked at, using the information laid out right in our sources. Let's see what that actually looks like.
Okay, let's take the Paris Agreement. On the one hand, you have the stated goal, which is fantastic, right? It's ambitious, and basically every country on Earth has signed on. But when we apply that critical lens, the sources also point out a pretty big catch. The whole thing is non-binding. The promises each country makes are voluntary, and there aren't any real enforcement mechanisms built in. So the critical question we have to ask is, can a system based purely on voluntary action actually solve such a massive problem?
Let's do the exact same thing with the Belt and Road Initiative. The stated goal is all about economic growth and connection, building ports and railways that countries need. Sounds good. But critics that are cited in the source material raise some really serious questions. They bring up things like debt trap diplomacy, where partner countries might end up owing so much to China they lose their sovereignty. They also point to major environmental concerns. Seeing both sides of the coin, the promise and the potential problems, that's what this deeper literacy is all about.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? Look, the goal is not to become some cynic who doesn't believe anything. Not at all. The goal is to become an empowered, independent thinker. It's about learning to see those strings so you can be the one to decide what's what, freeing yourself from being told what to think so you can form your own genuinely informed opinions. And the good news is our sources give us a practical toolkit to do this. And it's all about simple daily habits. Fact-check something before you share it. Be suspicious of headlines designed to make you furious or scared. Don't just get your news from one place, break out of the bubble. Question what you see and hear, especially with how realistic AI is getting. And, maybe the hardest one, be honest with yourself about your own biases. Because, hey, we all have them. So, in the end, it really all boils down to this idea right here. This whole process of unlearning isn't just a neat intellectual exercise. It's the very foundation of freedom in our time. It's having the guts to actively look at the stories we're being told and ask two very simple, very powerful questions. Is this really true? And who benefits if I believe it is? All these grand designs are happening right now. They are shaping your future, whether you're paying close attention or not. So the only real question left is the one you see right here. Who are you going to trust to do the thinking about them? Someone else or yourself? Thanks for joining this explainer.